Hey, Kevin here, Skylabs. We're going to talk about our top 5 favorite Pioneer receivers. This is all golden era stuff. These are the best of the best. I love Pioneer receivers. They're built really well. They sound incredible. At the end of the video, I'll give you the story that person I've got this award from gave me. And, you know, he could have been selling me a line, but it was good enough for me to buy it. And this thing's heavy. It's a really cool piece. One other thing. Again, I know I say this every time, but every time somebody comments and asks a question of, why didn't you mention how they sound? And again, if every 780 receiver sounded the same at this point, it'd be worth explaining how they sound. But my 780 is going to sound different than your 780 and so on and so forth, because it depends on how much service they've had. Have they been restored? Is there corrosion? How many hours of use have been put on them? Every 780 at this point is going to sound different. There's no point in me trying to explain how they sound. When they're restored in their service, they sound great. So the first one on the list, the Pioneer SX9000. This was around in 1970 to 1972. It's 52 watts per channel with 0.5 total harmonic distortion. They retailed at $500, which in today's money is about $3,800. The things I love about the SX9000 would be, one of them's the looks. They've got this super secret door that hides all of the extra controls. Really James Bond kind of esque is the way I would describe this one. This was the flagship. I love the graphics on the front of this. There's a sound shaping, and it's got these cool green LEDs that show you the curve of the EQ, whether it's vivid or, you know, a smile EQ. Really cool for the age. The dial pointer is illuminated. When you scroll through the stations, the little red indicator moves up and down. This thing was just packed to the max with every feature and input and output you could ever want. It's even got built-in reverb, you know, so that type of thing. A couple microphone inputs maybe even. If it was possible, they put it in there. And that's the reason why the 9000's on the list. The only negative I can think of, really, the hated Pioneer speaker plugs on the back. They just got lost. They're hard to find. They were a good idea if you wanted to hot swap speakers, but nobody ended up doing that. It was a good thing they got rid of them. So it does have those. The other negatives would be, this is early solid state technology, and they're not the easiest to work on. Besides that, great receiver. And coming in at number 4, we've got the SX828. And this unit was made from 1972 to 1974. This one, 2 more watts per channel at 54, 0.5 distortion, so the same. And it retailed for $470, which in the inflation calculator puts us at $3,300 in today's money. So on the strengths for the 828, I feel like the fit and finish is really nice on these. Nice weighted knobs. These are some of my favorite Pioneer knobs. They got a real heavy weight to them. They feel good when you're manipulating the controls. The faceplates are etched. The fit and finish on these might be the best on the list, and that's the X2X series. The negatives would be, they're still using those Pioneer speaker plugs at this point, and they're known for having noisy transistors. That would be the negatives. Not enough to outweigh owning one of these pieces, in my opinion. That's our number 4, the Pioneer SX828. And then coming in at 3, we've got the Pioneer SX1010, kind of a legendary receiver. This one was made between 1974 and 1976. We've got 100 watts per channel at 0.1 total harmonic distortion. These were $700 for their MSRP, and with the inflation calculator, that puts us at $4,200 today. And why is this receiver so important? Well, that 100 watts per channel, that was the first receiver to break the 100 watt threshold and really caused the watt wars that happened between 1974 and 1980. Pretty much as soon as this receiver came out, all the other manufacturers were playing catch up, trying to get to that 100 watts because Pioneer had done it. And the positives with the 1010, they finally got rid of those speaker plugs that everybody hates so much and went to a standard twist down speaker plug. So that was great. And then they're easy to work on. Solid state by this point had, we're 2 generations, maybe 3 generations in, and they had really learned a lot how to simplify these designs. This is a great era for Pioneer. And the negatives for this unit are really the same as the negatives for the previous generation. They had noisy transistors. The silk screening on the last portion for the FM dial liked to wipe off if you cleaned it. And so that was kind of annoying. But besides those two things, these things are rock solid. These are great receivers. This is maybe the golden era of Pioneer. This is the SX 1010 from Pioneer. And once again, the one that started the war. And if you've noticed up until now, we're moving up chronologically, but this is where we break that formula. We're jumping past the next era and we're going to the 80 series. This is the SX 780. This is a 45 watt per channel receiver with 0.05 total harmonic distortion, and these retailed for $399 and an inflation calculator that's $1,800. And you might say, Kevin, why didn't you put the 1980 on this list instead of the 780? Well, the 780 is the most sold receiver of the 70s. So you have to appreciate that. And then also, in my opinion, the 1280 and the 1980 are not a better receiver than our number one spot. This is where Pioneer and all the other companies, they started to cut some corners, and they started using STK packs, and they made the power supply smaller. It was a cheaper way of churning out more watts into that price point. The 780, yes, it does have STK packs in it. Yes, this can be a problem, and I'm talking about the outputs. When they fail, it is a little bit more on the spendy side to get these fixed than it would be a normal standardized transistor. However, people are starting to repop or make drop-in replacements. So the price has come down quite a bit on getting one of these fixed, and these units are going up in value pretty substantially. You're seeing, Pioneer SX 780 these days selling between, $750 to $1,000 depending on the level of restoration that's been done on it. And at that point, it does kind of warrant putting that kind of money into the output section if they do fail. Whereas 5 years ago, it really didn't. Putting a $300 to $400 restoration into a $300 or $400 receiver didn't make sense. But now that they're starting to get the numbers that they are, it's worth it to buy the replacement SDK packs and do the work correctly. So that's why the 780's on this list. They're an amazing receiver. They sold a ton of these because they were able to get 45 watts at a reasonable price and with VU meters. I didn't mention that before, but the SX 80 series does come with VU meters, and that is a big plus for a lot of people. That is our number 2 pick, which is the Pioneer SX 780. And for our number 1, it is my personal favorite receiver of all time, period, hands down, the Pioneer SX 1250. This thing is a monster. The power supply is huge. The build quality is amazing. The ease from a technician's point to work on these is even better. Can't say enough good things about this. I have always been a Sansui person. And after working on so many of the SX 1250s, as far as the receivers go, I don't think anybody touches them. I really don't. Now, I've never had 33,000 from Sansui. I've had 9,000s and I've had 9090 dBs, and they're great, but they're not a Pioneer SX 1250, in my opinion. Let me give you the specs. The SX 1250 was made between 1976 and 1978. These are 160 watts per channel. They retailed for $900. With inflation, that puts the price at $4,600 in today's money. These suckers weighed 73 pounds and they had 0.1 total harmonic distortion. These are just incredible pieces of equipment. And when you see one in person, you realize how big they are and how well built they are. If you put a 1250 up against a 1280, you can see it instantly. The 1250 is bigger. The 1280 has more power, but it has a smaller power supply. Not only that, the power supplies are modular in the 1250. They're not in the 1280. So there's a lot of reasons why the 1250 is better than the 1280. And in my opinion, even the 1980. And I get it, the 1980 is a massive amount of wattage. But the power supply, in my opinion, and most people that get into these and the outputs are better in the 1250. So that's the reason why the 1250 is the #1 spot. That's the reason why, in my opinion, it is probably the greatest receiver ever made. Negatives, they don't have VU meters, where, you know, the 80 series does. I think the 80 series is better looking. I wouldn't take an 80 series over a 50 series. That's just my opinion. Awesome. So you made it to the end. I told you I'd let you know the story on this. I bought this from a guy online. He posted it up in a Facebook group maybe 4 or 5 years ago. He bought it off somebody that owned a stereo shop in the 70s in Germany. They were given these as an award, you know, for selling so many receivers. I don't, you know, who knows what that amount was. Who knows if the story's even true. But I don't think he really had any reason to, you know, to fabricate that. He wasn't asking a lot for it. I was happy to pay his price. I would have paid the price without the story. So anyway, yeah, almost weighs almost a full pound. It's heavy and it's solid aluminum. Thank you for making it to the end. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please share, like, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. We've got a ton of video ideas that we're going to be getting to eventually, and you guys have been doing a great job of helping us with additional ideas. There's a lot of things in the works. Please just stick around and we will get to it. And I appreciate it and thank you.